definition, the dictionary definition of materialism is a theory that physical matter is the only or fundamental reality. First thing we're going to start with is, where does materialism stand in society today?
Today? All right, I'll start off. I think that before we should look where it stands from, because our subject matter is what? Racism, materialism, sexism, and classism. Oh, classism. Oh my God. But that doesn't, it all starts with traditional family structure, which is with the male being the high point, and the bread earner, and the more money he makes, the more power he has in society, which is materialism, and the more he becomes separated from the have-nots, which is classism. And the women have to take care of the family and the breadwinner, so then we have sexism. And yeah, that's just a traditional family value, and it's the structure of our society, and we still are using that structure in our society to this day.
So would it be safe to say that materialism is man started materialism? Men are responsible for materialism?
Survival has started materialism. Because I think back in the caveman days, right? You know, whoever got the most food, you know, is material for survival, but then it turned into more. Go ahead.
I think materialism, I mean, to me, materialism is more of just a concept, it's more of an idea. It's an illusion that people buy into. I think for survival needs, yeah, you need materials, but materialism is more based on value and how you perceive those things. So the idea of materialism is similar to the idea of currency. It's an idea used to create division and factions and to split people up, to let people know where they stand in society. I have this and you have that. So I'm a haver and you're a have-not. And it's an idea used predominantly by American culture to oppress people, to keep people in their spot so that they never want to attain more than what they have, or they never see themselves as getting to another point because they're either content with what they have or they feel it's unreachable.
Or have the ability, or given the ability.
But it's something created by society. It's not, to me, it's not a reality. It's sort of something ingrained in like the social milieu of society. It's this concept built on division. And it's praised today. I mean, if you look in music and you look in pop culture, you know, the guys who we look to as, you know, our modern day poets are these rappers, but the majority of the music is constantly telling us, you know, what they have and what we don't have and how they're so much better than us, as to say that how much you have and what you require is what defines your character. And to me, that's just false.
Is it any more predominant today than it was 50 years ago?
Yeah, but that's because we have more stuff to choose from, which we all buy, which we all buy.
Access, though. I think it's more so we see it faster because of the internet, and we hear it faster because of, you know, how music and things travel.
Yeah,
so
but there's it's still more of it. Like it doesn't matter. Like all those things are there because we see it. Yes, extremely true. But we all benefit from materialism.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're all competitive because of materialism.
And we're all competitive because of it.
So
but
across the board, how many of you would say that materialism is a negative thing?
Me personally, I don't choose to define it as a positive or a negative. I choose to just look at it for what it is. And to me, it's just an idea, it's a concept, and people choose different ways on how to buy into it. Me personally, I am a materialistic person. I think anyone who would say that they're not someone who buys into materialism is only fooling themselves, because we all buy into it in some way or fashion. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be the type of book you read, which author you're buying, or the type of clothes that you wear. You know what I'm saying? You are materialistic in some way.
Yeah, but there's a difference between necessity and materialism. Because necessity is having clothes on your back and food in the refrigerator and a roof over your head. But materialism is cutting your best friend's throat because you want that something.
But isn't that...
That's a very far extreme definition of materialism.
I'm bringing
Isn't
it
that what materialism can
creates.
do to people?
Creates.
Because
Yes.
there are people who live in this world without a shelter, without clothing. You know what I'm saying? Granted, in certain parts of the world where they live, they don't need to have that much clothing or have that much shelter, but they do without these things, and they make do with them, and they continue about their everyday lives. I think it's the concept and how you buy into it, depending on how it's presented to you. In this country, our major export, our biggest export, is entertainment. It's the biggest thing that we sell to the world. No one does it better than America. So when you look at fashion, when you look at music, television, film, we're selling you predominantly luxury, an idea on how to live your life, what to attain, what's gratifying.
And why you should F with American culture.
Yeah.
That's just what it's all about. Every image that we do is shrouded by this idea that isn't founded from my heritage, number one. I don't know what anyone else's, but it's an idea where it's something that was created to put a mask around this is what is here, so to speak. And these are the things that people here consume, and these are the things that people here do. So materialism, which we're all agreeing, it is what it is. It's an is. It's not something that we can live without or live with. But does that mean
It's
that
something that's there.
it's
and
something
you have
that's
to
there?
deal with
And
it
that's
however you
It's
do.
a natural
Exactly.
progression of man's behavior. That's basically.
I mean, it's a natural function of man's behavior. I don't even think it has to do with progression or regression. It's something that's always been there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, even if you want to use biblical text and you want to go to the story of Adam and Eve, Adam needed a woman. You know what I'm saying? To him, in the way, and there's many ways you can read that text, but the woman was sort of like an accessory to man. Not to say that that's how I view it or something, but that's how it was
A piece
presented.
of commodity, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Even
And the tree of knowledge was something that you couldn't touch. You weren't privileged in that. So materialism was around from the first thought, because that's what it is. It's just an idea. What do I have?
The idea
What
of
does this
possession.
mean to me? What does this make me? This is materialism.
Isn't it
Everyone views it
controlling?
differently. It can be, or it can be controlling, and at the same time it can be liberating. Because I can be materialistic about something that tells me not to be materialistic about everything, about anything. I can hold on to something fast and say that this is everything that I am, and fuck everything else, because it doesn't matter. But that's still materialism.
So are we going to ignore the negative aspects of materialism and just look at it at face value, or are we going to acknowledge
The negative, which is what?
The negative of, well,
negative, especially in urban culture? Some people would put material before education.
That's not materialism. There's materialism and there's worshiping material.
that's very true.
And I don't view them as synonymous. And the reason it's funny because someone Buddha chain on to talk about materialism. When you have materialism, I don't think it's a modern invention. You can go back as far as you want to who has the most fish.
Absolutely.
Well, Jerry got a boat, so Jerry get more fish. Well, Petey only has a rod, so Petey only gets the small fish. And Jerry, of course, has a bigger family, grows exponentially, and now Jerry can take over Petey's land because he had more things.
in the creation of classes.
We have things, and we didn't invent things. If you live in a material world, which is the physical world, i.e., if you're not sitting in a monastery with a big tarp on you, Indian style, trying to levitate, then chances are you live in some form or fashion in the material world.
But even if you do live in that temple and you are trying to do whatever you're trying to do, you're still materialistic. Like Buddhist monks who, practice seclusion are materialistic. I mean, you can't escape it. It's the inescapable game. You constantly drag towards it. You know what I'm saying? From what you wear to what you eat. Anything that you use to define yourself is materialism. So it's the unescapable thing. So to say what's negative and what's positive about it, it goes back to what materialism is essentially. It's just an idea. So the negative ideas we have towards it are our negative ideas. The positive ideas we have towards it are the same thing.
So is man, is there any, would you agree that there's any perversion of materialism? Because it sounds like you're all agreeing that it's a very, very much a natural thing.
Well, that's because if you want to talk about like a smart person and be all, materialism is the exponential view of ourself and the things that are around us are materialism, we have to be connected to them. But let's call a spade a spade. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a gold chain over new school clothes for your kids.
That's exactly
and
what
that's not the same thing.
That's where we get to this. Who does materialism affect the most in America today?
It affects everybody across the board. It affects rich people because they sell the items. It affects middle class people because they strive to be rich people and sell the items at the same time consuming the items. It affects poor people because they are natural consumers. Well, they're forced to be consumers based on their social structure because you can only get but so much. You can't get in here without this, and you need this, but you don't have this because you don't have enough money for that.
Or to act like you could be here, you should have this.
Yeah, act as if.
Defining factors.
Because it's constantly forcing people to define themselves. Who are you? That's the main question that materialism poses to society. Who are you? You know, when a rapper gets his first deal and he gets that advance check and he wants to spend half of it on jewelry, he's not doing it just to do it. He's doing it for stature.
Yeah.
He's doing it to say, I am somebody. I'm like my peers, or I'm better than my peers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and almost a visual artist is not a good visual artist unless you can sell.
That's
You
true.
know, we're defined by what we can sell and what we can produce. We're in a productive society, and it's all like, you know, trade and give and make.
So I think that even brings on, you know, to like a much deeper question. What is it with people and defining themselves? Why do we have to define ourselves? And at the same time, why do we use physical objects or things or ideas to define ourselves? Is it that we don't know who we are?
So you're saying that to a certain point there is a perversion of materialism in a way because it forces people to unnecessarily define themselves through possession.
But if you make that statement, then you have to say that the definition, someone's definition of themselves, regardless whether you define it as being positive or negative, is a perversion. Because there's nothing you can come in contact with that would not allow you to define yourself.
That's very true. Yeah.
I don't think it's a perversion.
If someone, that's why I wouldn't even use that word. Because the only way I know what I think is in comparison to what you think. Right?
There's no I unless you're trying to put.
Exactly. There's no I without you.
But there is we have to realize that there is a party on this earth that absolutely thinks materialism, let's be exaggeratory, it's the devil. They say that money, cars, clothes,
but let's get
women.
into that. I think what those people are saying is that luxury or objects that we deem as being luxurious are more important than people.
Yeah, like
That's, to me, in my opinion, is the real issue. When you can say I have this thing and this is more valuable than someone's education.
No, that's just being an asshole and making bad choices. If you have a child and you have to, you know, buy formula for your child, you just got paid, however you got paid, work or whatever, and you have this money, but instead you want to spend that money on a nice outfit to go to the club, because that influence might be coming from the fact that you're listening to Nicki, or listening to Neo, or you're listening to Trey Songz. That's just you making a bad fucking decision. That has nothing to do with materialism. That's you being influenced.
Yeah.
That's you being easily influenced. That's you already having a scope or a mechanism inside you already present, to where bad decisions are going to be a natural way that you get down. A lot of people have to understand that. It doesn't matter where you come from. I am from a not rich type of environment. I'm from Detroit. But because I know what that looks like, and luckily I figured out that I didn't want that shit when I was a kid, my path was different. Now everybody has that choice. Now everybody is able to make that change. I understand that, like, certain things need to be around environment-wise to spur that type of insight sometimes. Not even within your family, but outside of it, who knows? But when you make decisions like that, I don't want to put that all on materialism. There's a moral code or there's an issue that's there outside of materialism that's there. Materialism has to exist because we are a trade-based entity. The whole world is trade-based.
I mean, even deeper than that, we're a thinking-based entity.
We're a thinking-based entity. The way that you exchange bodies, people,
Information.
money, information, it's all trade. I'm paying $29.95 for internet to get whatever from said internet. That is my trade. Am I materialistic for using the internet? People could argue that. Why? Because I'm not reading books. I'm not going to the library. I'm not utilizing all my time to get free information and supporting my local branch. That doesn't make me materialistic because I want to use a good King's internet and get my information that way. That doesn't mean I'm making a bad decision. But if I were to say, you know what? Forget my rent, I'm going to go buy these Kanye West Giuseppe Heels. That's me making some really piss poor financial decision.
So I think what she's getting to too is just what is it with society? What is it with people that's clearly innate to us that allows us or propels us to constantly want to define ourselves?
That's where we get to the last component.
It's not a definition, in my opinion.
Even
It's a
our government.
drawbridge.
Okay.
It's a drawbridge, as in, because this is obviously going to be the topic of the day. If you need food, and food's here, and I place a drawbridge in between and make you exchange something for something in order to get to here, that's where it starts.
Yeah,
it starts
absolutely.
there. Now that may be furs, it may be spices, it may be just raw gold from the earth, it may be paper that we consider valuable because it's backed by gold, which is no longer backed by gold, which is a whole other story. But when you're talking about the exchange, and then it's the layer of things that are in between. So you need to look as if in order to attain. Now we're not materialistic by nature. I don't think we need to define ourselves. So we don't define ourselves by materials. In some cases, we just define ourselves by ideas. You know, those ideas may be inherently attached to materials, but sometimes they're not.
No.
I don't think the guy sitting in the monastery with a big cloak on is materialistic. I don't think the person that gives away all his possessions and moves to the middle of Brazil to live in the rainforest with the pygmies is materialistic. I think they're fighting the idea of the corruption. And the corruption is what we're faced with. We're not faced with material. Material isn't bad. Having materials aren't bad.
Materialism of the concept.
Materialism in itself isn't bad. If you're materialistic about the things that make your family happy, there's no bad in that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're just materialistic for the sake of the drawbridge, then you have a problem.
Now that actually it brings us to the last component of what we have to discuss, because we've obviously drawn a line between natural trade and just material. Period. How do we combat or rectify the bad idea of materialism? The where we use it to define ourselves.
It's
where
our
we
society.
I think it's taught. I think it's a mental.
It is our
condition that's
society
taught.
too, that has us compete against each other with things that we see on television and our very government, with giving tax breaks to the very wealthy because they achieved this.
And exposure is its biggest teacher, more so than you give it credit for.
Yeah.
Once you're exposed to certain things, once the idea sparks in your brain that you can do something different, have something different, no matter where you're from, that's pretty much the way you're going to rock.
So is the solution to unlearn the tainted version of materialism?
But you can't do that.
I'm learning what you've learned,
You
but
can't
I think
unlearn that.
it's important to develop another generation.
I wasn't up on technology. If I didn't utilize math and utilize science in high school, I wouldn't have gotten a scholarship to college. I wouldn't have been able to get the job I have now. There are a lot of things where technology, me having that knowledge bank as a woman of color, greatly helped me out in terms of being able to make inroads in society, which is surrounded by a whole bunch of isms that we're going to get to later, right?
Yeah, the haves
so
and the
understanding that, have materialism helped me out? Most definitely.
Absolutely.
Am I mad about that? No, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's like that. Am I very aware that I'm materialistic to the point where I like to have expensive things? Yes. But did I buy those Gucci boots for $64.95 at Beasley Closet? I sure did. So there's a way to play the game.
But I think
There's a
that-
way to make it fit into
If I-
what you
and I
understand.
think
If I
it
So
goes
is it
back.
about redefining?
If
That's
I
how we.
can for 1 second, the
Go ahead.
concept you're talking about is in its premise anti-American, as we are today, if we're going to just play the field as it is, and it goes back to the 1920s, because the people you're talking about and the brand of materialism you're talking about is a response to credit.
Yep, yep.
Materialism, for the most part, was
Mhm.
reined in throughout the,
Touche.
I don't know, all of society.
Yeah.
Why? Because you can only do with so much.
Mhm.
The rich have what they have, and they have excess, which is why they're the rich, which is why we envy them when we look at them on TMZ. The poor don't have anything, and take a secret, I didn't know I was poor, so I started watching TV. And everyone in between is fighting the bottom and claiming and clinging to the top. So the materialism of credit, which is you don't have to have, but you can get.
Mm.
And that was when they started deregulating banks and allowing poor people to whack themselves into credit damnation.
Yeah.
Borrow to get. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you start having things like
Pay it back on your
penalties.
own
you
terms.
start
Pay it back on your own
compromising.
terms.
Well, no, it's our terms.
But
But
that's
like your
That allows-
soul,
that
They
allows-
own you.
your
They
soul,
own
the
you
fact
with
that
credit.
for the
allows
low, for
you-
low
yeah.
easy payments of $49.95, you can have this thing.
So now you
And based
start
on that, you
compromising.
can then increase the value of what those things mean to you.
Yeah.
Right.
The meaning of third-party powerless objects can increase when you increase the vacuum they can exist in. So we have things that don't really matter that we go all out for. That's why you have more people standing in line for brand new sneakers than to
Mhm.
register to vote.
Mm.
Because voting doesn't get you anything. At the end of a vote, what do I get? A sticker? An I voted sticker? At the end of that line, I
I got a
got
cookie when
Jordans. Jordans
I
you
did
don't
it.
have yet. Jordans you can't have yet for 3 weeks. But you don't have them yet. The point is I have them now. And based on the fact that I have them now and I'm doing this, I am somebody.
Yeah.
that's
Because
something-
somebody
Let's-
don't
let's-
have nothing and I got
let's-
something.
Let's wrap up with each of your idea down the line of materialism, and in terms of rectifying it, because it has to be a solution. It has to be a solution.
No, it doesn't. No, it
Do
doesn't.
people have to do people
No, it
have to
doesn't.
stop defining
People,
themselves?
people need to stop trying to solve mass things that are there. People need to know how to exist with it.
Oh, thank you.
Flat out.
Okay.
There's no
Thank you.
reason to go around trying to solve things that benefit things in some way or another. You benefit from materialism. You want this to go on the web and become viral. How are people going to fucking do that?
Mm.
They're going to go on the computers that they have to buy,
Yep.
that have to have a certain type of technology to access that to watch your video.
That's very
Then what are
true.
you going to do? You're going to get ad space. That
Mhm.
ad space is going to get you money.
Yep.
When you get money, you're going to buy other shit.
You're a
So at
bastard.
the end of the day,
I actually have
so-
a pair of gold shoes with my name
so
on it.
at the end of the day, there's no reason for you to feel convicted. No one should feel convicted by trying to solve materialism.
Okay.
Live it within your means.
From our level, we work to where materialism is okay because we're fighting classism, we're fighting racism, we're fighting sexism.
We're not fighting racism.
In
That's a whole other
in
conversation.
our,
Yeah,
in
we'll get to
our,
that.
but in our goals of achieving more in society, in bringing ourselves up to a different. Myself, I am involved with classism, where I have a problem with that in my life, and I find that the more I am able to own and the more I am able to achieve, the less down I am pushed.
But I think
Last statement.
just to piggyback on what you're saying, like, well, what is achievement? Because that in itself is a form of
It's
materialism.
It has.
That's, I'm going back to how I define myself. I think it goes back to piggyback on what she's saying too. You don't have to solve everything. I think it could be said the natural order of things is chaos, is self-destruction. Stars expand and they blow up. And the materials spread out in the universe and create more things. You don't have to go around and solve all these issues. Maybe these are things that were destined to happen because we have the ability to think. We have the ability to create. Now that we have the ability to create, we have the ability to use these creations and define ourselves because we made them or we have them. So we're different from everyone else. It's deeper than the material. To go to what he was saying, it has to do a lot with what's in here. The same thing when he was talking about the credit. It's not exactly the credit, it's what credit does to your mind. Because now I can get things without having anything. Or I can look at myself as being a certain type of value without being able to get that. You know what I'm saying? I can still attain it, which allows me to define myself in a different way.
That's right, Common. Good job, Common.
Well, since we're just here, I'll just preface by saying this. I've got 2 semesters of 13th grade. I'm really not smart.
Shut up.
And they weren't consecutive either.
Oh.
But the materialism that we're talking about, I don't think comes from some inner being nature to want shit. I think it's just based on the current system and the way things are. You want to fix it? Quick way to fix it. It's gonna suck.
Where did that system come from?
Well,
Didn't that system come from?
well, that's a
the
long
system?
that's a long
We
story.
gotta wrap it up.
That's a long story.
We gotta
I mean,
wrap it
essentially,
up.
From the most selfish perspective of that statement,
Okay.
how do we fix it? And I'm just assuming we mean Americans, because who the fuck else do we care about? If you live in a tent, this conversation ain't for you.
Message.
How do we fix it?
Closing arguments.
Just tell the Federal Reserve they're dead on that. And they're, of course, going to go back to the Europeans and the bunch of people who own our debt, and they're going to say, well, the dollar ain't worth anything, and we're going to just have to go back to making things again. Imagine that. Factories everywhere. How was Detroit when factories was open? It's a mecca for black people. A lot of pool sharks out there. A lot of pool sharks had the word Detroit in their name because there was a lot of black people making money there.
It wasn't like the Malcolm X movie. It was
No, sure it wasn't.
vibrant.
So when you go back to things
People
like
used to
that,
go to Belle Isle and
Yeah.
say, and now it's
go back to making stuff. And our dollar's going to suck. We're going to have to open a whole bunch of factories. Maybe we're not going to have a brand new iPhone. They don't make those here. Maybe we're not going to have a VCR that works. We have to go back to
Who's
VCR.
using a VCR?
Oh, we're going to have to go back to those, by the way, because we're not making
What about
any
beta? I
progress.
don't want a beta player.
The point is, if you really want to end materialism, you're going to have to take the hand of Madison Avenue way about your pocket, and you'd be surprised how elbow deep they are. There are people who get corner offices for figuring out new and interesting ways for you to buy shit. So we're going to have to get rid of that and just go back to making stuff and trading with each other. Gas will be 67 cents a gallon, and I can get a haircut, a new steak, a suit, a pair of shoes, and a brand new prostitute for $5. Boy, am I looking forward to that.